You experienced the crack of lightning. The world, once a familiar landscape, was illuminated in a flash of blinding, terrifying truth. For a moment, a day, maybe a week, you felt it. The oneness, the profound interconnectedness, the silent, humming engine of the universe. You saw the game. You saw the roles people play, the masks they wear, including your own. You saw the matrix of social conditioning, the invisible threads of manipulation in your relationships, the quiet poison of toxic dynamics you had mistaken for love or loyalty. You thought, this is it, I've woken up. Now everything will be different. Now the real journey begins. And then's nothing. A week later, you're on the couch. The dishes are piled in the sink, the emails are unanswered, the inspirational book is collecting dust. The profound motivation you felt, that surge of divine purpose, has evaporated, replaced by a thick, heavy fog of apathy. You feel more lost than you did before the awakening. You feel tired, not just physically tired, but soul tired. A deep cellular exhaustion that makes even the smallest tasks feel like climbing a mountain. You have no motivation. Zero. And the most brutal part of this cosmic joke is the question that haunts you in the silence. Was it even real, or did I just break my own mind? You are asking the wrong question. The question isn't, why did the motivation leave? The real question, the one that will crack open the next stage of your transformation, is, what is this lack of motivation trying to tell me? Because this profound lethargy is not a sign of failure. It is not a bug in the system. It is a critical, non-negotiable feature of genuine psychological rebirth. It is a distress signal from the deepest part of your psyche, a signal that is almost always ignored. Today, we are not going to talk about spiritual platitudes or loving your way back to inspiration. We are going to descend into the engine room of the psyche with the unflinching guidance of Carl Jung. We will dissect the brutal mechanical reasons why a spiritual awakening so often leads to a complete collapse of motivation. This is not a failure. It is a necessary demolition. You feel you have no motivation because the very structures that used to motivate you have been razed to the ground. Your old life was a house built on a lie, and the awakening was the earthquake that leveled it. You are now standing in the rubble, and you are exhausted from the shock. You are not broken. You are being disassembled for a complete rebuild. And the first step is to understand the 5 foundational pillars of your old self that had to be destroyed, and why their destruction has left you feeling so completely and utterly stuck. This is why you have no motivation after a spiritual awakening. Pillar number 1, the violent collapse of the persona. Before we go any further, you must understand Jung's concept of the persona. The persona is the mask. It is the socially acceptable front you've presented to the world since you were a child. It's the good son, the rebellious artist, the dependable employee, the charming friend, the spiritual seeker. It is a curated collection of traits, beliefs, and behaviors designed for one purpose: survival and acceptance in the external world. Your persona got you praise in school, it got you the job, it helped you fit in with your friends, it kept the peace in your family. And here is the brutal truth: your entire motivational system was wired to maintain and fuel this mask. Think about it. Why did you work so hard for that promotion? To fuel the persona of the successful professional. Why did you always say yes when you wanted to say no? To fuel the persona of the nice, agreeable person. Why did you post those pictures, buy those clothes, laugh at those jokes you didn't find funny? To fuel the persona. Your motivation was a stream of dopamine hits rewarded for successfully performing a role. The spiritual awakening is the moment you step off stage, walk backstage, and see your own mask hanging on a hook. In a horrifying flash, you realize you are not the character you've been playing. The awakening wasn't you gaining something new, it was you losing your primary identity. This is why you have no motivation. The actor has no reason to learn his lines if he knows the play is a fraud and the audience is gone. Consider the story of a man we'll call Marcus. Marcus was the golden boy. From a young age, he was an academic prodigy, a star athlete, the son every parent dreamed of. His persona was one of effortless excellence. He went to a top university, then straight into a high-powered finance job in the city. The money, the prestige, the respect, it all fed the persona. His motivation was a roaring fire, fueled by external validation. He worked 80-hour weeks, driven by the need to be seen as the best. Then, during a high-stakes merger, the pressure cooker of his life finally cracked him open. A series of panic attacks led him to a meditation retreat where he had a classic awakening experience. He saw with sickening clarity that the Marcus everyone knew and admired was a hollow shell. He saw that his ambition wasn't his own. It was a desperate attempt to earn the love of a father who was never satisfied. He saw that his friendships were transactional, built on status and utility. He saw that he was profoundly, existentially lonely. In a moment of what felt like supreme clarity, he walked out. He quit his job, left his apartment, and cut off most of his friends. He was free for about 2 weeks. Then the silence set in. He found himself in a small, cheap apartment with no routine, no accolades, no one to impress, and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't bring himself to look for a new job, not even a simple one. He couldn't bring himself to exercise. Some days he couldn't bring himself to get out of bed. The roaring fire of his motivation was a pile of cold ash. He felt like a complete failure. What's wrong with me? He thought. I had this huge breakthrough, and now I'm lazier and more pathetic than ever. Nothing was wrong with him. His entire motivational operating system had been deleted. The old fuel, praise, status, competition was now repulsive to him. It felt like poison, but he hadn't yet cultivated a new fuel source. He was in the void, a hollow space between the death of the false self and the birth of the true self. If this is you, your first actionable step is this: stop trying to find a new motivation. Stop frantically trying to build a new, more authentic persona. You cannot solve this problem with the same mind that created it. Your task right now is not to do, but to be, to sit in the rubble, to tolerate the profound discomfort of not knowing who you are. The void is not empty, it is fertile. This is the ground where your true self, what Jung called the self with a capital S, can finally begin to emerge. Your motivation will not come from a new goal. It will eventually emanate from this core like heat from a star. But first, you must endure the cold and the dark without flinching and without running away to build another mask. Pillar number 2. The unavoidable confrontation with the shadow. The initial peak of a spiritual awakening is often filled with light, love, and a feeling of purity. You feel cleansed, you see the best in people, you feel a boundless compassion. But you are forgetting a fundamental law of physics and psyche: the brighter the light, the darker the shadow it casts. Your shadow, in Jungian terms, is everything about yourself that you have repressed and disowned. It is the repository for every trait you were taught was unacceptable. Your anger, your jealousy, your laziness, your greed, your manipulative tendencies, your savage rage, your profound sadness. It's not evil. It is simply the parts of you that couldn't coexist with your persona. The nice guy had to shove his anger into the shadow. The strong woman had to bury her vulnerability. The spiritual person had to disown their ambition and judgment. For most of your life, you spent a colossal amount of psychic energy keeping that shadow locked in the basement. The awakening didn't just illuminate the world, it illuminated your own inner prison. The door to the basement has been blown off its hinges, and everything you've hidden from yourself is now standing in the living room, staring at you. This is a primary reason for your exhaustion. You feel demotivated because you are in the middle of an internal civil war. A part of you is trying to cling to the light of the awakening, while another massive part of you, the shadow, is demanding to be seen, heard, and acknowledged for the first time. This internal conflict drains more energy than any job or difficult relationship ever could. Let's look at Alina. Alina's persona was that of the healer. She was a yoga teacher, a vegan, always calm, always compassionate. Her friends came to her for advice. She was the stable, gentle rock in her chaotic family. Her awakening experience, which happened during a breathwork session, was euphoric. She felt an overwhelming sense of love for all humanity. But in the weeks that followed, something ugly began to surface. She found herself feeling flashes of intense, venomous rage at her students for their minor complaints. She felt a bitter, corrosive envy toward another yoga teacher whose studio was more successful. Most disturbingly, when her mother called with the usual litany of dramatic problems, instead of compassion, Alina felt a cold, hard resentment. She saw with brutal clarity how her mother had used her as an emotional dumping ground her entire life. Alina was horrified. This isn't me, she thought. I'm a loving person. Where is this poison coming from? She tried to meditate it away, to transmute it with love and light, but it only grew stronger. She became afraid to teach, afraid to talk to her mother, afraid to even look at her own thoughts. Her motivation to engage with her life plummeted because she was terrified of the toxic shadow self that was now co-piloting her consciousness. She was paralyzed by the dissonance between the healer persona and the raging, envious, resentful being she discovered within. Her lack of motivation was a defense mechanism. Her psyche was hitting the emergency brake because to continue acting as the healer persona while ignoring the raging shadow would be to live an unbearable lie. It would be a psychic split. The exhaustion was the price of suppression. The brutal truth is this: you cannot bypass the shadow. True integration, what Jung called individuation, is not about destroying the shadow or conquering it. It is about turning to face it and integrating its energy. That rage you feel, it contains your power, your boundaries, your passion. That envy, it's a signpost pointing directly to what your soul desperately desires. That laziness, it might be your body's wisdom, screaming for rest that your persona has denied it for decades. Your actionable step here is radical and requires courage. You must begin the process of shadow work. Stop judging these feelings as bad or unspiritual. Get a journal and give them a voice. Write it down. A part of me feels rage at my father because. A part of me is jealous of my friend because. Don't show it to anyone. This is not about blame, it is about acknowledgement. By naming and owning these shadow aspects, you stop wasting energy fighting them. You begin the long, arduous process of reclaiming the lost pieces of your own power. The motivation you seek is not in the light, it's buried in the darkness you've been running from. When you integrate your shadow, you integrate its fuel. You become whole, not just good. Pillar number 3, energetic overload and boundary failure. Before your awakening, you were living with a certain level of psychic anesthetic. You had to be numb to survive. You had to be numb to tolerate the subtle manipulations of a frenemy, the soul-crushing drone of a pointless meeting, the passive aggression at a family dinner. Your persona was your armor. It deflected the minor toxins and irritants of daily life. The awakening strips this armor away. It's like having your skin peeled off. Your senses are heightened, not just psychically, but emotionally. You are raw, everything is amplified. The hidden jab in a friend's joke no longer slides off you, it feels like a physical cut. The disingenuous smile of a coworker feels like a wave of static. The emotional neediness of a loved one feels like a vacuum hose attached to your soul. You have no motivation because your entire nervous system is in a state of shock and overwhelm. The life you were previously able to tolerate is now revealed to be an unbearable energetic assault. Your lethargy is a form of self-protection. Your body and psyche are staging a protest. They are refusing to supply the energy required to participate in activities and relationships that are now correctly perceived as toxic or draining. Imagine a man named Ben. Ben was a classic nice guy. He worked in a small office where the culture was built on gossip and passive aggression. He was part of a friend group that bonded over sarcastic humor and subtle put-downs. He was married to a woman who suffered from anxiety and leaned on him heavily for constant reassurance. He navigated all of this with a kind of weary resignation. It was just life. His awakening was quiet, a slow dawning that occurred over several months of reading psychology and philosophy. He simply started to see. He saw that his boss wasn't just difficult, but a classic narcissist who thrived on control. He saw that his best friend was a hidden enemy, whose jokes were always designed to keep Ben in his place. He saw that his wife's anxiety was a tool she used, perhaps unconsciously, to manipulate him and avoid taking responsibility for her own life. Suddenly, going to work felt like walking into a radiation zone. Hanging out with his friends felt like being pecked to death by chickens. Coming home felt like plugging himself into a machine that drained his life force. He became profoundly tired. He started calling in sick to work. He ignored his friends' texts. He would come home and shut down, retreating into video games or silence, unable to offer his wife the emotional support she demanded. His wife called him selfish. His friends called him flaky. His boss called him lazy. He called himself broken, but he wasn't broken. He was finally healthy. His system was rejecting poison. His lack of motivation wasn't a character flaw, it was an immune response. It was his soul screaming, "I will not provide one more joule of energy to these toxic dynamics. I will shut down the entire factory before I produce one more product for this corrupt system." If you are feeling this, understand this clearly. This exhaustion is the most honest signal your body has ever given you. Do not pathologize it. Do not fight it. Listen to it. Your actionable step is to treat your energy as your most precious resource, more valuable than time or money. This is the moment you learn the brutal, life-saving art of setting boundaries. This is not a polite request, it is a declaration of sovereignty. A boundary is not about changing the other person, it's about protecting yourself. It sounds like, "I can't talk about that right now. No, I won't be able to make it. I need some time alone. If you continue to speak to me that way, I will end this conversation." Each time you set a boundary, you patch an energy leak. At first, it will feel terrifying. You will be accused of being selfish, cold, or not the person you used to be. The correct response to that is, "Thank you for noticing." Your motivation will not return by forcing yourself back into the fire. It will return when you build a fortress around your spirit, a fortress called boundaries. Only then will your system feel safe enough to begin generating energy for what truly matters. Pillar number 4, the shattering of the spiritual fantasy. There is a dirty secret in the world of personal development and spirituality. It's the unspoken belief that the awakening is a finish line. It's the fantasy that once you wake up, you will enter a permanent state of bliss, flow, and enlightened action. You will be above the petty concerns of mortal life. The universe will magically provide. You will be special. Jung had a term for this, psychic inflation. It's when the ego identifies with a powerful archetype, in this case, the archetype of the enlightened one or the wise sage. You don't just have a spiritual experience, you become the spiritual person. This inflation is a trap. It creates a new, even more insidious persona, and when reality inevitably intrudes, the fall is catastrophic. The motivation dies because the fantasy dies. You realize that waking up doesn't mean the bills stop coming. It doesn't mean your car won't break down. It doesn't mean you don't still have to do laundry and deal with difficult people. The cosmic bliss fades and you are left in your messy, imperfect human life, but now with the added burden of feeling like a spiritual failure. Think of Chloe. She got swept up in New Age spirituality. After a powerful psychedelic experience, she was convinced she had ascended. She quit her stable, if uninspiring, graphic design job, believing that if she just lived in a state of high vibration, the universe would provide for her true calling, which she hadn't quite figured out yet. She spent her days meditating, doing oracle card readings, and talking about manifestation. For a month, it was magical. A friend let her stay in a spare room. She felt free and aligned. But then reality began to bite. Her savings dwindled. The friend gently hinted that she needed to start contributing. No magical, high-vibration dream job appeared. Instead, she was faced with the prospect of having to find a mundane job just to survive. The disillusionment was crushing. Her spiritual high evaporated, replaced by panic and a deep sense of shame. She felt like a fraud. Her motivation to do anything, even her spiritual practices, vanished. What was the point? The universe hadn't delivered. The awakening was a lie. She was just a broke, unemployed woman who had deluded herself. The crash from her spiritual inflation was far more painful than her previous state of unenlightened stability. Her lack of motivation was a direct result of a shattered spiritual ego. She hadn't integrated her spirituality into her life. She had tried to use her spirituality to escape her life. The universe wasn't punishing her. It was teaching her the most critical lesson of all. True individuation, true spiritual maturity, is not about transcending the mundane. It is about infusing the mundane with the sacred. The actionable step here is to embrace what some call the marketplace spirituality. Find the sacred in the profane. The path to the self is not found by floating above the world. It's found by digging your hands into the dirt of your own existence. Your spiritual practice is not just the 20 minutes you spend on a meditation cushion. It is how you handle the rude cashier. It is the integrity with which you pay your rent. It is the courage to have an honest, difficult conversation with a loved one. Stop waiting for a grand, divine purpose to reveal itself and motivate you. Your purpose for now is to wash the damn dishes, but to wash them with presence. To pay the bill, but to do so with a sense of gratitude for the shelter it provides. Your motivation will not come from a lightning bolt from the heavens. It will be cultivated slowly and humbly by finding the presence of the self in the smallest, most ordinary acts of your daily life. This is the real work. Pillar number 5, the great neurological rewiring. The final pillar is the most mechanical, yet perhaps the most profound. Your brain itself is being rewired. For your entire life, your motivational system ran on a specific neurochemical fuel, dopamine hits from external validation, achievement, and distraction. Get a promotion, get a dopamine hit. Get 100 likes on a post, get a dopamine hit. Buy something new, get a dopamine hit. Avoid a difficult task by scrolling on your phone, get a dopamine hit. Your brain was a network of superhighways, all leading to these short-term external rewards. A spiritual awakening is a system-wide reboot that begins the process of decommissioning those superhighways. Your psyche, in its newfound wisdom, recognizes that this external reward system is a trap that perpetuates the rule of the persona and keeps you disconnected from your true self. It begins the slow, arduous process of building new neurological pathways that lead to intrinsic rewards, fulfillment, peace, authenticity, and connection. This is the core of your problem. You are in the middle of construction. The old, familiar highways are closed, but the new roads are still unpaved, full of potholes, and don't seem to lead anywhere you recognize. This is the neurological basis for feeling stuck and unmotivated. You press the gas pedal, try to get motivated, but the old roads are gone and the new ones aren't finished. Imagine your brain is a city that for decades ran on fossil fuels, external validation. The awakening is the decision to switch the entire city to a new, clean, sustainable energy source, internal validation. But on the day the decision is made, the old power plants are shut down. The new solar and wind farms aren't fully operational yet. The result, a citywide blackout. That blackout is your lack of motivation. It feels frustrating, unproductive, and like a regression. But it is a necessary phase of a monumental upgrade. This is why old pleasures feel hollow. It's why chasing the same old goals feels pointless. The reward circuits for those activities have been disabled, and it's why new, healthier activities like meditation or journaling or quiet contemplation can feel like a chore at first. Your brain doesn't have a well-established reward pathway for them yet. You are literally building a new brain, one small, authentic action at a time. Your actionable step here is to shift your focus from outcomes to process. You have to abandon the dopamine-addicted mindset of "what will this get me?" and adopt a new one. I am doing this because it is an expression of the person I am becoming. Your goal is not to feel motivated to go to the gym. Your goal is to put on your gym clothes. That's it. That is the win. Your goal is not to write the next great novel. Your goal is to sit in the chair and write one sentence. That is the victory. You must reward the showing up. You are laying down the tracks for the new railway, one sleeper at a time. It is slow, unglamorous, repetitive work. There are no fireworks, there is no applause, but with each small, intrinsically driven action, you are soldering a new connection in your brain. You are strengthening the pathways of the authentic self, and over time, a new kind of motivation will emerge. It will not be the frantic, grasping, needy motivation of the persona. It will be a deep, quiet, powerful current, a sustainable energy source that comes from within and cannot be taken away by external circumstances. Conclusion: the sacred chrysalis. So you stand in the rubble of your old life, your old identity shattered, your shadow self staring you in the face, your nervous system raw, your spiritual fantasies in ashes, and your brain in the middle of a blackout. And you feel you have no motivation. Good. You have been given a terrifying and sacred gift. You have been stopped. The runaway train of your false life has been derailed, and you have been forced into a period of profound stillness. Do not mistake this stillness for failure. Do not mistake this void for an ending. This is the chrysalis. The caterpillar does not simply sprout wings. Inside the chrysalis, it dissolves into a soupy, chaotic mess. It becomes nothing. It is a state of complete disintegration. This is where you are. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are liquefying. You are dissolving the persona, integrating the shadow, recalibrating your energy, abandoning your fantasies, and rewiring your very being. This process cannot be rushed. To try and force motivation now is to try and force the caterpillar soup to fly. It will not work. Your only task is to honor the process, to protect the chrysalis, to set the boundaries, to sit with the discomfort, to witness the darkness without judgment, to perform the small, mundane acts of a life that is slowly, painstakingly being reborn. The motivation that you lost was the motivation of a slave to public opinion, to external validation, to a mask you mistook for your face. The motivation that is waiting for you on the other side of this is the motivation of a sovereign. It is quiet, it is powerful, and it is yours. It is the unwavering desire to express your true self, not for reward, not for praise, but for the simple, sacred reason that it is who you are. Embrace the darkness, honor the stillness. You are not stuck. You are in the most potent and creative phase of your entire existence. You are becoming.